Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In light of the latest pro-Palestinian protests, I decided to put the Israel-Palestinian conflict into an animation so that those who wish to have a better understanding of the background of this conflict can easily follow. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Imagine that a historical house has been in Alice's family for a very long time, and she has deep emotional and historical connections to it. For Alice, every corner of the house held memories of her family's legacy. The faded wallpaper in the living room, once vibrant with patterns that her grandmother had lovingly chosen, now served as a reminder of the passage of time. The creaking floorboards whispered stories of past gatherings, where laughter mingled the aroma of home-cooked meals. And the old oak tree in the backyard, its branches reaching towards the sky, stood as a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity. One day, due to circumstances outside of her control, she has to leave the house. Bob, who has also been looking for a home, and has historical claims to wanting to live in this particular house, moves in during Alice's absence. For Bob, the house was more than just a structure. It was a symbol of his own history and identity. The worn-out armchair in the study, where his grandfather had spent countless hours lost in thought, spoke of the sacrifices made by generations before him. The peeling paint on the front porch, weathered by years of harsh summers and bitter winters, symbolized the endurance of his family's spirit. And the patch of wildflowers in the garden, carefully tended to by his mother, served as a testament to the love and care that had been poured into the land. Years later, Alice returns, expecting to move back into her old home. Alice stood in front of the familiar house, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. This wasn't just any house, it was her family's home for generations. Every brick held memories of laughter, tears, and resilience of her ancestors. As she approached the door, her hand trembling, she hesitated for a moment before knocking. The door swung open, revealing Bob, a stranger to her, but someone who had made himself at home in her absence. "Who are you?" Alice asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I'm Bob," he replied, his tone defensive yet tinged with sympathy. "I've been living here for a while now. I didn't know anyone else owned this place." Alice's heart sank at his words. She had hoped that her return would be met with understanding and perhaps even empathy, but instead she found herself facing a stranger who had settled into her home as if it were his own. "But this is my family's house," she protested, her voice rising with frustration. "I have every right to be here." Bob shook his head, his expression hardening. "I understand that you have a connection to this place, but so do I. My family has roots here too, you know." And so the conflict began. As Alice and Bob navigated their conflicting claims to the house, they found themselves drawn into a web of competing narratives, each one rooted in a deep sense of belonging and attachment. For Alice, the house represented a connection to her past, a link to her ancestors, and the traditions they had passed down through the generations. For Bob, it was a refuge from the uncertainties of the present, a sanctuary where he could carve out a sense of stability and belonging in a world fraught with conflict and upheaval. In their quest to find a resolution, Alice and Bob turned to their friends for advice. Some offered support while others urged them to find a compromise. But as they attempted to set rules for cohabitation, tensions only grew, fueled by the deep-seated emotions tied to the house. At times, their arguments echoed through the halls, each one fighting fiercely for what they believed was rightfully theirs. But amidst the chaos, there were fleeting moments of understanding where they managed to find common ground on small issues like sharing the kitchen or tending to the garden. Yet the question of who truly belonged in the house remained unanswered, hanging over them like a heavy cloud. As days turned into weeks and then months, Alice and Bob found themselves locked in a stalemate, unable to find a long-term solution that satisfied both of their needs and desires. And so they continued to coexist in a state of uneasy tension, each day hoping for a resolution that seemed increasingly out of reach.